Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Jonathan Williams is the president and chief economist at ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council. Now, Jonathan, I got two sets of talking points today, subjects to cover with you, and I'm going to do them both. So I'm going to ask you to stay for an extra segment. Have you got time to do that?
Happy to do that, Hugh, always.
Oh, great. Because the first one is Medicaid. Now, I confess to you, I don't know what to do about Medicaid because the president said he's not going to change it. What does the American Legislative Exchange Council members want Congress to consider as they go about that?
Well, I think, the big, beautiful bill that was just shepherded through the House beautifully by Speaker Mike Johnson and Virginia Fox at the Rules Committee put in yeoman's work. That made some important changes, Hugh, and I think the Senate may even look to go further. But I mean, what the House did is actually come forward with the common sense work requirements that so many states have looked to engage in if they were able to get waivers from the federal government to do so. And that's going to have some major savings while not cutting Medicaid, which is, of course, what the liberal media would like all of us to believe, that somehow Medicaid is going to wither on the vine again. With these kind of reductions, these are not actual cuts. These are just common sense reforms that make sure that people at least work or volunteer something basic like 20 hours a week, Hugh. I mean, we're not talking about a huge commitment here, but that's something that is a common sense reform supported by a huge majority of Americans. And another key piece here is making sure those not in the country legally are not able to partake. And that's something that the states across the country have looked at. There's also issue of people that enroll across multiple states fraudulently. And you look at reports from the GAO, for instance, and they can find a Medicaid fraud over a 10-year window ranging in the $1 trillion range. So we're talking about ways to clean up Medicaid and to actually preserve it. And this is where our ALEC members come down, is Medicaid ought to be a social safety net as it was designed to protect those really in need. The disabled, the elderly, and those with children that otherwise cannot work in the workforce. And that's, I think, what the House is looking to do, and the Senate may even make it stronger, Hugh.
Now, I don't know if in the One Big Beautiful Bill they address people in the country illegally. In California, where I taught this year for a couple of months in California, illegals were welcome into Medi-Cal, which is the California version of Medicaid. I think Gavin Newsom is reversing course on that because they got a $12 billion deficit in California. But does the One Big Beautiful Bill say you've got to be in the country legally to be eligible for Medicaid?
That was my understanding of it, is it addresses that issue and the work requirement issue. And as part of the reforms that were driven by conservatives in the House, the implementation of these pieces would go from 2029 up to 2026. I mean, I think it didn't make a whole lot of sense to do something that we know needs to be done and wait until 2029 to implement it. So kudos to those that pushed to move up the implementation date to 2026. But one other piece on this, Hugh, is the incentives are all wrong all the way around when it comes to Medicaid. But one of the biggest problems is because of Obamacare, you have this piece where states now receive a federal match today of 90 cents on the dollar for the expansion population. And the expansion population in many cases is able-bodied working age males with no children. Now, states get that incentive to sign them up, and regardless of their legal status, regardless of potentially other fraud that's going on. And so I guess you look at some of these big blue states and you probably ask themselves, why wouldn't we sign these folks up? We get the political benefit for it, and we get to charge it to the federal government to read taxpayers from the other 49 states.
Jonathan, way back in the dark ages when Obamacare came along, Ovik Roy was on the program a lot, warning about this. It's a trap. Like the famous Star Trek thing, it's a trap. Don't go there. The Medicaid match is a trap. And I believe it declines over the years. But even that 10% goes up and it kills the states. We should never let the spending clause get out of control like that. Some states held out, right? Some states said, no, we don't want your money.
Well, thankfully, cooler heads did prevail in 10 states that have not taken the bait and expanded under the so-called Affordable Care Act. That match started out at 100%, Hugh, so you're right that it's gradually gone down to a 90% match. But juxtapose that for a minute versus the traditional Medicaid population of the disabled and the elderly and those that cannot work. That average federal match to the states is somewhere between 50 and 60%, I think, based on the state. And so we're giving more incentive for states to enroll individuals that should not be enrolled than to actually take care of people that should be. And what we need to be talking about, if we want this as a social safety net, which I think most Americans do, and it's been ingrained in
Yes.
our culture since the 1960s, we need to have program integrity to ensure the resources are actually going to be there for those that are truly disabled.
All right, don't go anywhere, America. Jonathan's coming back on the other side, except to alec.org/Hugh, alec.org/Hugh. Sign up for the State of the State newsletters, or go to richstatepoorstate.com and get yourself a free book on how your state's doing across all the metrics that matter. Got more to talk about with Jonathan Williams on the other side. Don't go anywhere. He's not going anywhere, and I appreciate the time from the American Legislative Exchange Council. Stay there.
You're watching The Hugh Hewitt Show on Salem News Channel. Coming up.
Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Jonathan Williams is the president of the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC. You can get the ALEC free newsletter, alec.org/Hugh on the State of the State. You can also get the book, which Jonathan and I love to talk about every year, richstatespoorstates.com, for free, thanks to Alec's work. Jonathan, before we go to Texas and Oklahoma, let's talk about the One Big Beautiful Bill. I wrote a column about it for Fox News today. President Trump actually first called it that on this show on January 5th. He wanted one big, beautiful bill. So now H.R. 1 is One Big Beautiful Bill. That's its official title, which is kind of humorous to me. But you had 400 state legislators sign on. And it's not perfect, but the perfect must not be the enemy of the good. Is that the summary?
I think that's right. Is our ALEC legislators know that Americans did not want to see that massive middle class tax hike that would have happened automatically at the end of this year if Congress did nothing. And as we know in Washington, nothing comes completely without horse trading. And so there are some things in that bill that probably everyone wouldn't have loved. But I mean, the direction of it is right. And I think we staved off what could have been an economic catastrophe and multi-$1,000 tax increase for the average American hardworking taxpayer. So I think that sense, I mean, Chairman Jason Smith, the ALEC alum of Ways and Means Committee, I know was a big proponent of the One Big Beautiful Bill concept. And there's a lot of important things that they got done there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the Senate's fingerprints. They're concerned with rural hospitals, and I think that's something they left themselves some wiggle room on the spending side to deal with. Okay, to the states. Texas Education Freedom Bill signed by Greg Abbott. It is Senate Bill 2. What's it do down in the great state of Texas?
Well, Texas now has become part of the national movement and a major victory for universal education, freedom, and parental empowerment. And our ALEC members have been leading the way for years on this topic and finally break through the logjam. The Senate has been really solid on this many sessions now, led by Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and Senator Brandon Creighton. And now with the new Speaker of the House, Speaker Burrows, was able to get this across the finish line with many great assists along the way. And so this is going to be the largest by dollar amount in terms of children also affected across the country in the universal program. So an absolute massive victory. New Hampshire is going to be right around the corner, I think, at number 17 that we may want to talk about on the next show. But I think we deserve a major, major kudos given to Texas for this hard work over the course of so many years to get this across the finish line.
You know, John and I had a chance to have some coffee yesterday morning with education activists, longstanding education activists, and they agreed with me. They know about richstatespoorstates.org. You've got to put this metric into the ranking because it really will, over time, determine the future of a state if they reform education this way. Not half-heartedly, but wholeheartedly, like Texas and Ohio, especially Arizona, Florida, West Virginia. You know them all. The more that states embrace education and freedom, the better off their future will be. Agree?
Oh, absolutely. And the combination between economic freedom and education freedom is the secret sauce. I think when you put those two things together, and all those states that you just mentioned have been states that have done just that. And that was Milton Friedman's contention. You combine those two great freedoms, and we're going to see amazing results. And it's turned around West Virginia, as we've talked about. He was a state that had been out migration for 100 years straight, has now gone into the positive and gaining people from other states after doing school choice and actual economic freedom with tax cuts.
For the deficit hawks out there, the debt warriors, productivity solves all problems. Growth solves all problems. Education solves all problems. Let's talk about Oklahoma, because I am told Oklahoma had a pretty good 2025. Jonathan, what'd they do?
Well, they had an incredible month here in May as well. And this is, I think, Oklahoma deserves the Gold Star Award for the month of May, with Governor Kevin Stitt just last night signing into law another income tax rate reduction. But what this does is special in that it actually is going to be a phase out of the Oklahoma personal income tax over time, where they're buying it down with triggers as growth comes in. And Oklahoma is going to be on track to be the next no income tax state. We just talked about Texas. Oklahoma natives know they have to compete with zero on their southern border with Texas. That's not been a winning proposition, competing with the Lone Star State. And Governor Stitt and legislative leaders got it done last night. And the interesting thing about this, Hugh, and many big free market policy success stories have long story arcs. This one started really in the 1990s, when then Governor Frank Keating talked about the need to eliminate the Oklahoma income tax. And here we are 30 plus years later, and they got it done across the finish line.
Well, I have a column in Fox News today about entitlement reform. The answer is to do things over 30 years. Don't do sudden things. Do like raise the retirement age a month a year for 40 years. That'll get it up to 69 in 2065. No one notices, no one cares, and that's the way to do it. I want to close by asking about Julie Daniels, who's the Oklahoma Senate Majority Leader and an ALEC member. You really do need experienced state legislators who learn stuff from ALEC to get stuff like this done, Jonathan. Has she been a worker bee for years?
She's been incredible. Senator Daniels, now as majority leader, is just an all-star legislator on the ALEC board of directors. And I think it's safe to say this, and the REINS Act on regulatory reform and Chevron deference reform, hospital price transparency, she's got her fingerprints on all those key free market success stories. And we couldn't be more proud to have her serve on the ALEC board. You need leaders like this that are willing to take the ball and run with it. And it's not, I talked about the executive branch. That's important, but it's got to get to their desk first. And it takes people like Senator Julie Daniels and her counterparts there in the state Senate and state House to do it.
The only bad thing that happened to Oklahoma this month is that the Supreme Court deadlocked 4-4 over whether or not their charter schools could support a Roman Catholic charter school, because Justice Amy Coney Barrett was recused. And I think one of the justices did a courtesy throw to the liberals because she wants to be the one to overturn Employment Division v. Smith. But their AG is really kind of messed up. You need to talk to him. Maybe get him to go to a couple of ALEC seminars when you get together in Indianapolis. By the way, Indianapolis is going to win the NBA title, I think, because they beat the Cavaliers, so they're the second best team, the Cavaliers. And you're going to be there in the middle. They'll still be celebrating in July when you go to Indianapolis, Jonathan.
You bet you. We're going to be there with Governor Braun and a whole lot of legislative leaders and our probably 1,500 plus best conservative friends. So hopefully you can join us.
Oh, I would love to, but I am going to be in the beautiful state of Maine in July. I'm going to see you in June, though. Jonathan Williams, Chief Economist, President of ALEC. Thank you for staying the extra segment. Don't go anywhere, America, except to alec.org/Hugh and get the free newsletter on the state of the states. I'll be right back.